just like to welcome everybody here today to this very important announcement and be a part of the Glenn Lazarus Team policy, which I believe will support and benefit women across Australia and bring an end to tax discrimination in this country. And joining me on this special occasion to announce our policy is Olympic swimming legend, Queensland legend and an icon, McDonald. Julie is not only well known for her sporting achievements, but is also highly regarded for her strong community focus and support of women's issues. I'd also like to welcome founder of Share the Dignity, Rochelle, Courtney. Share the Dignity is an organisation that supplies frontline workers with tampons and sanitary pads to deliver to the homeless, women and domestic violence survivors of Australia. And with her is Dr. Danny Barrington from Share the Dignity as well. Since founding Share the Dignity, Rochelle has personally assisted tens of thousands of women across the country through the donation of tampons and sanitary napkins. Annette Lourigan, our Glenn Lazarus Team Senate candidate for Queensland, who is standing for the Senate alongside Kerr Violence and of course myself. Annette is a community champion who has held numerous leadership positions across Queensland, including Queensland President for the National Council of Women. Every day, women across Australia struggle with the challenges of life, of being a mum, a partner, a worker, a business owner and a carer. Women struggle having to manage household expenses with too little money and having to find money to pay for the most basic of essentials such as milk, bread and other items. We know the cost of living is increasing, yet our income is not increasing. For many, it is reducing. On top of this, women are having to find the money to buy essentials each month, such as sanitary napkins and tampons. To make things worse, women are also being forced to pay GST for these most basic of essentials. The GST is not supposed to apply to essential health items. Condoms, lubricants, sunscreen and nicotine patches are all tax-free because they are classed as important health goods. But for some reason, reproductive health and the hygiene of millions of women is not considered important by the government. Women don't buy pads and tampons for pleasure. So why are they being forced to fork out an extra 10% every 2, 3, 4 weeks? Taxing Australians for getting their period isn't just sexist, it's fundamentally unfair. On average, women earn on average up to $300 per week less than their male counterparts, and they are also statistically at greater risk of living below the poverty line. Furthermore, GST on sanitary items disproportionately targets those who may already be disadvantaged, such as the homeless and the unemployed. So why is the government forcing unpaid, at risk and the most disadvantaged portion of our society to pay more for basic essentials? The answer is the government shouldn't be. And today, with the support of women across Australia, we are going to stop this injustice. Today, the Glenn Lazarus Team is committing to the abolition of the GST on tampons and sanitary napkins. The Glenn Lazarus Team is committed to the abolishing the GST on tampons and sanitary napkins as a matter of urgency, and we will do what it takes to achieve this. The removal of the GST from tampons and sanitary napkins will require an amendment to the goods and services tax legislation, and the Glenn Lazarus Team will work with whoever forms government to draft the required amendment. This will be one of the first things we do if I am re-elected. The injustice must stop. The government's unfair taxation gouging must also stop. The tampon tax has to go. The Glenn Lazarus Team is also committing to the provisions of tampons and sanitary napkins to government-funded crisis centres and emergency accommodation. It is important we ensure women in need are allowed the dignity they deserve during the darkest and most challenging moments of their life. This will require a budgetary commitment on a part of the government, and I will work with the government, whichever government that is, to ensure this budget allocated is organised. So I call on whoever wants to be the next Prime Minister, whether it be Malcolm Turnbull or Bill Shorten, to man up and support me and the women of Australia in abolishing the GST for tampons and sanitary napkins. The tampon tax is a bad tax which discriminates against all women. The women of Australia want a commitment from Malcolm Turnbull and Bill Shorten before the election to remove the GST, and I call on Malcolm and Bill to give this commitment. I would now like to welcome Rochelle and Danny to make a few comments regarding why we need to abolish the tampon tax. Rochelle.
Thank you. We are looking at a tampon tax on the basic of necessities. It is not a fair tax, and it's not something that is our choice. Like Glenn said, it's not like we're getting a Ferrero share every month and going, whoa, we're loving this. You know, it's a basic necessity. We're looking at 44,000 women every year who are homeless, and 85,000 women who are using homelessness services. They cannot afford the basic necessities. We as a charity have now collected 270,000 packets of pads and tampons. That's about $3 million that every woman that has heard about it has donated. That's 300,000 that we've paid in GST just on items that women couldn't afford them in the first place. It's not a fair tax to start with. Danny knows a lot more about the human rights behind taxing our tampons, and I'll pass that over to you, Danny.
Thank you. So it is actually a basic human right to be able to manage a period with dignity and with hygiene. And so getting rid of the tampon tax is the first step in us being able to have all women around Australia recognise this right. And so thank you for introducing this policy.
Yes, thank you, Glenn. We're high-fiving you.
Thanks, Rochelle. I now just want to call on Annette to say a few words as the Glenn Lazarus Team's spokesman for women. A few words. Okay, over to you, Annette.
Glenn, I can't thank you enough. Through friends with the National Council of Women, brought this to Glenn and Rochelle into Glenn, and was just relieved, excited, ecstatic to actually to sit with a leader that went, really? Seriously? This is what's happening? And to actually to develop a policy. The suffragettes are pretty proud of you today, Glenn. 15 years ago, Julie McDonald and I had our first fundraiser to get pads, tampons into homeless women's shelters here in Brisbane. It's really sad to know that 15 years later that this is actually still an issue. But I suppose we're girls, and that could be what makes it an issue. It's not seen as a necessity, and I'm really not quite sure what would make anybody think that makes anybody think that pads and tampons do not fall under an essential health item. Think about it if it wasn't there. At that time that I was doing fundraising, we were looking at the homeless mums and children on the streets. The growing demographic in our country in homelessness is aging and retiring women. And I know that through the GLT policy and passion and that fight for fairness and doing the hard yards for people that are doing it tough, that we won't be taking any of these issues off our table, that we will be addressing them. When we live in a community, in a country that thinks it's fair, that childcare services is a privilege, that women and their superannuation, and this is the women that raise our children, that raise our future, that they when they resign, that their superannuation gap is massive, that they're actually looking at going into retirement and wondering if they can afford to pay the utilities that continue to rise. These are the women and the men that have actually worked hard for our country. The GST on sanitary napkins is not fair. It's not right. There are other countries in this world that didn't even introduce it, but we did. And I'm very proud to stand with the Glenn Lazarus Team and with you, Senator, as you tackle this issue that should not be a feminist issue. It's actually an issue for all Australians, at every age. And personally, thank you so very much.
My pleasure. Julie, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, so 15 years I've been collecting items for the homeless women and different shelters around Brisbane. I'm an ambassador for the Rise Up team, which put together homes for the women who have escaped domestic violence issues. The fact that these homeless women don't have access to these necessities is really, it's almost a crime. And, you know, I'm really proud to stand here today and support Glenn in this policy and Annette and, you know, and just do what you can to help these people and support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Yeah, it's not a task for me to support something like this. I do believe it's a no-brainer, and I will be, as I say, working with whoever is in government if I'm re-elected to introduce this policy as soon as possible. I just want to thank everybody for coming here today for this very important announcement on the policy with the Glenn Lazarus Team, and I'd also like to thank Rochelle and Danny, Julie, and of course my running mate Annette. Thank you so much for coming along, and we'll call it quits, I think. Thank you.